All right.
Cool.
So where were we?
We were on our favorite games part three.
Okay.
Favorite game by system. I feel if I just went through my favorite games, they would obviously cluster around a couple systems I've played heavily.
Yeah, I imagine we're already like getting past your
That
prime.
cluster. Well, we're well past my cluster. I mean, I barely play things past 1990, so
I still switch it up now and then. Um, let's see here. Where's my list of games I've played this year? Because as you know, I'm deeply fascinated with recording every game that I've played since like 2006 or something stupid.
how do you count for pre 2006 games?
I just have to rely on my memory.
But I mean, did you go back and like record them all? Like, we're
No,
trying to
no, no,
remember
no,
what.
no. I mean, there's games that I know that I've beaten as a child, but that's just okay. So it's not even 2006. Anything pre 2013, I didn't bother to track. When I was in college, I tracked stuff on paper, but I lost those pieces of paper. So
Boo, boo. I used to do that with movies. I used to like write every single movie I'd ever seen down, and I was doing that since like high school. So I mean, that
yeah,
was like a long time ago, and I still have that list actually. Um, I don't know. I kind of fell out of that, so I still record things, but I just never really look at it.
yeah.
Yeah, I get
But
it. I guess.
I don't know. I'm like some sort of weird person who cares about data, but also doesn't care about data at all. So it's like I record stuff, but there's no need for it, and I don't go like super in depth with it. But this year, since January 2021, because that's the actual year now, uh, I did beat Mega Man 4, 5, and 6. So you know,
I mean, these are rebeatings.
I don't think I beat 6
Really?
back in the
Wow.
day.
Wow.
I think I played through that one for the very first time.
What do you think?
It was good. I actually so that was the first one that I played out of them in
Hmm.
January, and I actually liked it quite a bit, and I could actually see how they had improved stuff between 5 and 6. Um,
Between 5 and 6, even. Wow. You
yeah,
know, it's that's interesting. It's funny if you look at just, I guess, like the general reception that six has gotten. It seems to be six that everyone always makes the comment that like the series is tired now and they're not innovating anymore. Like I don't know what it is. Six always gets this bad rep for some reason, but I don't. I've never felt it super deserved. Like you just kind of sit down and play it. It to me is a really fun game. I guess if you did a marathon of the games, maybe you would. That's around 5 or 6 is when you'd start to get tired of the series a little bit, or when it starts to just feel the same. I don't know, but it seems pretty consistent to me anyway. People feel that way.
yeah. I remember playing 6 back on the original Nintendo, and for whatever reason, I felt disappointed by it.
Hmm.
Um, and
I,
then but I actually played it through completion for the first time this year, and it felt good to me. Like one thing that I really liked is like the jet suit that you get. You use your power, and then it recharges on its own, and you don't have to find the power ups to recharge it. So it's
yeah.
like it gives you like this controlled power that you need to manage, but you're not having to grind in order to charge it back up.
Hmm. Yep.
And I don't know, that really was starting to feel like a slog as an adult through all the other Mega Man games. Is like I don't know, like I think Mega Man 1, there's like a spot where you get like the little magnetic wall climbing thing that you need to use, and if it's not charged up, you just can't do the level. So there's a
Yeah,
couple
there's that
spots like
part.
that where you just had no choice but to sit there and kill enemies at random, hoping that they would give you the power up you need, and it would take like 10 minutes sometimes.
Well, you know what I think of grinding.
Yeah,
I It's regular gripe if there's any grinding at all. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is about six. I guess if you think of like when it came out, it was like what 93, I think. So probably people were kind of clamoring for a Super Nintendo Mega Man, and maybe just like whatever, like the context of when it was released kind of let people down or something. I don't know.
Yeah. The fact that Rush was otherwise kind of eliminated. I did find the controls for Rush weird on that, the way you jump on it, but
I mean, it's been so long since I played 6. I actually don't remember. I
but
played
yeah.
5 recently though. 5. I mean, 5 is still kind of one of the ones I really liked a lot. And so uh, I do replay it every now and then.
Nice. Uh
Yeah,
but yeah, we're trying to get into the newer games.
those.
The
Yeah.
the more modern ones.
I still have this thing where I'll talk about new games with people, and like our definition of new is always like for me, new is like I don't the year it came out has starts with a 2. You know what I mean? And other people, it's like new is like this moving window where it's the past like
Year.
literally like 2 years or something.
I
And
mean,
so
so some people don't even see it as like the past year.
yeah,
There's a subreddit that I go to called Patient Gamers,
hmm
and I think the rule is like it has to be older than 2 months.
2 months. Wow. I think
Like,
part of it for me, I know this is a big tangent, but part of it for me is like it goes back, I guess, like how I've always viewed like film. I guess, like even in the I don't know whatever 90s when I was a kid, I always really liked a whole bunch of different kinds of movies, and so like I never really cared when they came out, and so I was watching Universal horror movies from the 30s and film noir from the 40s and whatever, right? Like all these 60s like spy movies, and so to me at the time, even like new kind of meant like I don't know, past 20 years or something. Like in the context of all movie
yeah,
history, you kind of put new as that last portion, right? And
yeah,
so to other people who don't give a shit about anything older than 5 years, it's like new means it just came out. So
yeah. I feel like there's a lot of games, uh, and I guess those are the ones we're going to start talking about today that feel new to me. Like once games started fitting onto DVDs,
yeah.
there's like there's a quality threshold where like sure you can tell it's an older game, but it also holds up quite a bit compared to a lot of modern games.
Yep.
Um, just to correct myself before I continue down that thread, the patient gamers, I just looked it up. It's 6 months they consider new.
That's wild. I mean, that kind of the whole reason I think when we started this podcast, one of the big themes was like, we're parents and we move
Yeah,
around, and how do we even find that time? Like, if I could touch on that theme, I don't even know
yeah,
if we're still kind of holding on to that, but
yeah,
yeah, I mean, like, part of it to me is just I don't play that many games anymore, or like my game time is so limited,
yeah.
and there's like, I mean, you have the same thing going, I think, but there's like this just big list of games I want to play, and I can't just throw it away every so often because I'm only looking at the last few games that have come out, right?
Yeah. I actually manage a lot more time than I used to back when we were on the previous episode. Uh, so I mean, I've got like my wife is more interested in games now than she was back then. So every now and then we play stuff together. My kid is now at an age where we play games a lot together. Like we spent a good chunk of yesterday playing Super Mario: The Origami King.
hmm
Um, and then recently he's got a more reasonable bedtime, and my wife is like busy doing stuff at work. So this pandemic thing has shifted our work hours in like weird
Mm.
time slots. So now I'm finding I've got some more free time to play stuff at night.
That's good. That's good. For me, actually, it's not. I kind of. I've been, I guess, life hacking, if you will, and I'm playing a lot less games intentionally,
Yeah.
which I mean is for me is crazy. But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of testing the effect on my life, I guess.
Um, but yeah, it's definitely for me like this is kind of the era where you said that you kind of started to lose interest a little bit because we're moving into the PlayStation 2 era,
That new gamer.
which I think is kind of a divider for modern games.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do. It's funny because I think even at the time when like so when PlayStation 1 was out, I was really into PlayStation 1 actually. Um, that statement might be a little laughable for a lot of people because there's people I know that have like beaten the entire library, and I'm certainly not that kind of person, but I was definitely into games that were new at the time.
Yeah,
And I think I kind of went through a rediscovery of like kind of the original Nintendo and Super Nintendo era right kind of after that. And so as PlayStation 2 was really popular, I was kind of like, well, I'm doing this other thing right now. And then I just never really got back on the track, I guess. Um, Not that it matters. Like, I'm happy to play anything. I'm not like intentionally avoiding things or something weird like that. But just, I don't know, I had my thing I liked. And, a new system would come out and it would cost however many hundreds of dollars. And I'm a student. And I know if I buy it, I'm still going to be playing whatever Super Nintendo game instead. And so why would I buy it? Right. And so, like, I would play games that my friends had, or I'd play, especially like social games. Like, we used to play a lot of Melee when it came out and was still new. Um, but for my just kind of more just personal uh, gaming, I don't know. I was kind of out of the loop from that point on, and so I just never got back on.
yeah, yeah. I mean the PlayStation 1 was just like epic to me when that came out because it was like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the only polygon game I can really think of having played before then was Star Fox, which I'm not a Star Fox fan.
Is anybody?
I mean,
When it came out, I found it impressive, but I'm not sure that I
I didn't even
found
find
it
it
fun.
impressive. Like I was young and naive enough that like from a tech standpoint, it didn't do anything for me. It was just like,
Mm.
why does this look so much worse than every other Super Nintendo game? Was my opinion.
Well, I remember when the original Zelda came out, and everyone was like, "Look at the Triforce, it's amazing!" And talking about the FX chip and all this stuff. Like, to me, it was like, "Whoa, that's going to be the future," and I can't wait for that. Which is funny for me because now it's like, well, but uh, Star Fox was like, I guess, step one of that, and so it was perhaps technically interesting to me, if not anything else.
Yeah.
I will say, I mean, uh, computer games kind of were more forging in that direction a little, right? And so you had some of that. Like, I think everybody played Doom, for example.
Yeah. Uh, uh, I wish I just had all of my bookmarks and stuff on hand to be able to link stuff. I know I've seen some good stuff about that. I think actually there's a Netflix series called The History of Video Games, maybe. Let me briefly look that up. Netflix video game documentary series. High Score, the first computer graphics. Yeah, it's called High Score. And that's it. It's actually pretty good. It
Hmm.
runs through like kind of the origin of some of that stuff, like the first games that had graphics, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
I would recommend you check that one out if you haven't already. Um,
Uh, yeah. Totally. Let me jot it down. I haven't watched anything at all recently.
no,
No,
you're
not at
more
all.
you're more into the mangas and
What am
uh,
I into? I don't know. I've been drawing a lot. I've been uh, exercising, believe it or not. Self improvement things. Not that like reading and knowledge acquisition isn't self improvement, but that's the sort of self improvement I've been focused on my whole life. So kind of new self improvement, I guess.
nice.
Yeah,
Enjoying improvement uh, during a pandemic.
something like that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's all like I said. It's kind of a see how I feel when it's all done thing. But it's felt good.
Nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, PlayStation 2 is kind of interesting because supposedly it is in 2021 the best-selling console of all time.
Hmm.
And last year, I'm reading it was still the third most popular console in Brazil. Uh, it I don't know. For me, it was definitely a threshold of more modern stuff, and by that I mean like I played. So that came out in 2000 when we were still in high school,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't get time to play much of it in high school. I think at that point I was still really pouring a lot of my time into playing guitar
Mm-hmm.
and like drawing. And so I think the only game I really played while I was still in high school was Final Fantasy X, which I I really enjoyed the opening of that. It was like amazing cinematic quality,
Mm-hmm.
graphics, and it like started with a heavy metal song. And like for me, this was like, oh, what are they doing to my Final Fantasy? This is amazing. And then the gameplay started, and it's like one of my least favorite games. It's like Final
Least favorite
Fantasy.
games, like not even least favorite Final Fantasies.
No, just like no. I was. I mean, part of that was probably just I had such love for Final Fantasy VII and all the games before that that
Uh-huh.
like as they slowly destroyed my beloved series, I just got angrier and angrier.
It's that classic resistance to change, fanboyism.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, I feel it. I get you. I totally get you.
you never
Um,
tried 10, did you?
I played it for like an hour.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. um, just generalizing about PlayStation 2, and I mean, the world disagrees with me. I know, but like I've always had this is like probably a topic for another day, but I just have like this, I guess, view of video games, kind of what the game is and what the flavor around the game is. And like I don't know, PlayStation 2 is when it really got like I guess the focus to me anyway kind of shifted away from um the balance between like how much I felt like the focus people had on the game was shifting more to how much they had on, I guess, like almost like the cinematic experience around the game, which is fine. And it's not to say that in any way like games became less innovative or something. Just I don't know, like up until around then, you could just put out a game that was like basically just like this plain I don't know, game with not too much around it, and it would still be popular and kind of could be mainstream. And by PlayStation 2, like you couldn't really do that anymore. Like no matter what game you put out, it had to be like beautiful looking and have a soundtrack by whoever and whatever and whatever. And that's fine, but like around then is when uh, like the friction of getting started playing a game just felt heavier to me. I know that sounds really weird, but like on the old Nintendo, you flip a switch and you press start and you're in, right? PlayStation 2, it's like you
Mm.
sit down, you power on the system, you wait for it to load, and then you find your save game, and then it loads, and there's people talking, and now you're playing, and then it just like that kind of started a little bit. And I found at the time I was kind of frustrated by that,
Mm.
and I felt like no one was doing kind of the kind of games that I really loved anymore. It was almost like it was a dead art, which is interesting because I feel that way and quite strongly that that started to happen around like 2000ish and persisted until the whole indie game thing started happening. Um,
Well, I was just gonna say it. I think there was kind of this shift around Final Fantasy VII in 1997. Like
oh
that
yeah.
was kind of deemed to be like the first AAA game or one of
E-
the first.
So I agree with you. I think that was around like PlayStation 1 was really the transition, and by PlayStation 2
Yeah.
it was like pretty solidly done. Like I mean, I
Yeah.
could call out even like on Dreamcast, they had Choo Choo Rocket,
Yeah.
which and you know, it's just a little one-off game, but like Sega just made this game and it was like super fun, totally dumb, totally like could have been like one of the first cell phone games even, right?
Yeah.
And they released it for Dreamcast, their flagship system. So Sega made it for their flagship system. Like by PlayStation 2, no one was really doing that kind of right. And again, especially like with PlayStation 3, 4, and as time went on away from that, you had like the store came out, and then people were releasing these like just kind of smaller, more like experimental games on that, and then the indie thing happened. But right around PlayStation 2 is when it felt like Hollywood in a way where everything had to be a blockbuster or no one was
Yeah,
talking about it. Yeah, and so
yeah,
that's
it was like AAA went from being like invented 3 years earlier to being like kind of the
yeah,
norm. It's like
yeah,
the small indie games. Like I don't know, you look at Mario 3, for example. It's like how many people made that game?
yeah.
Like even Final Fantasy
Could fit in a
6,
room.
there was like the same. I think it was a smaller dev team than
Mm-hmm.
the indie company I'm at right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's like once that PlayStation 2 came out, it was kind of the expected normal that you've got these inflated teams now.
Yeah.
And there's this real mental shift that, like you're saying there, with the um, it went from like kind of like being able to just hop in and play to being forced to watch some sort of cinematic first. Like if you think of Castlevania Symphony of the Night was the PlayStation 1 era, the
Mm-hmm.
next Castlevania era was Lament of Innocence. And I don't know if you played that, but it's like in Symphony
I
of the
can
Night.
never remember the titles. Which one was that?
It was a 3D one
Oh yeah.
with. It was chronologically the first one in the Castlevania games, where
Was
it
that
explains the backstory of the whip itself, and
so no, I haven't, I think. Are you that's the PlayStation 2 one?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, so you're skipping the Nintendo 64 ones, which were the
Well,
first
for
3D ones.
obvious reasons.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I forget if I played that one. I think I just saw the preview when it came out and was like grumpy that it wasn't Castlevania anymore or something, right?
Well, I feel like it was closer to Castlevania than the N64 ones. Like
Sure.
it was 3D, but otherwise it was largely the same. So I feel like it wasn't. I don't feel like Castlevania belongs in 3D.
Yeah, I mean, you know me, I have a lot of opinions about this. But I'd have
But
to play it to pass any sort of judgment.
but to me, it's just the difference of like Symphony of the Night. You like open the game, you go past the title screen, you create your save file and name it, and then immediately you're playing as Richter Belmont.
Hmm.
And it's like not until after that little opening sequence that they then give you like a story crawl. But
Hmm.
immediately with Lament of Innocence, the story.
It's like a 2-hour movie or something.
Yeah, it's like that was definitely the
Hmm.
shift in games. It's like okay,
Yeah.
now you press start and then you're playing. I think like up until that point, like NES games, they might give you story while you're not playing the game, just like at the title screen,
Hmm.
if in like demo mode. But then when you actually press start, the expectation was generally you start playing the game.
Yep. Totally. Totally agree. Totally have lots of feelings on this. I mean, I think even like Final Fantasy, the series, is a pretty good analog to kind of what was going on at the time. And even I think was one of the real, like you called out Seven as the first cinematic AAA, whatever. But like, yeah, I think it was kind of one of the pushers of that. But like, if you play through the games, they just get more and more and more story heavy.
Mm.
Not even like, I mean, even four was pretty story heavy, but
Yeah, I was just thinking like I guess it's not fair to say that about seven because like with four, I remember like that whole sequence at the beginning. That was still probably 15 minutes before you're actually like playing your first fight.
yeah, but I don't know. I think I still feel like there's less, like you kind of have this game with this like fat layer of like presentation around it, and I feel like four, that layer was just less fat. Like with a
Yeah,
fast enough click of your button, if you didn't care about the story, you could just be playing. And plus, the
yeah,
story felt very in game. Like seven was like, okay, here's a movie. All right, now go ahead. Okay, here's another movie. And
yeah.
just as they went on, it was more and more of that. I mean, people seemed to like it, so they ran with it, and they're still doing it. And yeah, is what
Yeah.
it is.
So what were some of your favorite moments from the PS2 though?
I'm actually trying to really, really think. I mean, obviously, we prep for every episode. I wrote Shadow of the Colossus as my
Yeah.
favorite game for the system, and I would still call that one out. I mean, actually, I love that game. It's a great game. Could probably have a whole episode of that game, talking about that game.
Yeah.
I'm actually, to me, PlayStation 2 was more like I remember when it came out, and Onimusha was one of the first games. And like, if we were doing an episode about games that just blew me away when they came out, that would be one of them. And it was not in any way the game, right? It was just like the cinematic presentation, I guess, the graphics quality, if you will. Um, but I just couldn't believe that anything like a game could look so real. Right?
Yeah.
um, so I mean, that sticks out to me, that game, but it's definitely not a favorite. It's kind of more of a uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Sign of the times or something. Like I remember that era in that way, kind of like things were so graphically interesting now. Wow, look how cinematic everything is. Wow. Um, definitely did go enjoy Shadow of the Colossus. Um,
I need to try that one again because I recently played The Last Guardian and I absolutely hated the controls on it.
oh,
And
I think
and
Shadow of the Colossus controls weren't good at the time either. Sorry,
yeah,
just to finish my thought quick, and this is maybe what you're about to get to, but
yeah,
there might be some, what's the word, rose tinted glasses here or something.
yeah, yeah,
A lot of the time, so I feel like when you go back and you play Mario 3, like it controls great, right? But like a lot of the early 3D games, like your
yeah.
memory is making things a lot nicer than they were when people were still trying to figure out the best controls and land on conventions and stuff. I don't think you'll find Shadow of the Colossus to be a particularly nicely controlling game. I feel like at the time I was like, huh, this is kind of weird. But yeah, the the
Because I had forgotten what the controls are like, and I haven't played it,
mm,
but I saw an internet discussion recently where they're talking about how weird it was that you had to jump by pressing triangle, the top button,
mm.
which is the same as it
Thank you. The
is.
top button.
Well, for those of
X,
our
you mean?
fans who may not.
It's the Super Nintendo X button.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, it didn't exist on the regular Nintendo. Um, uh,
That new
um,
button, that new
but
row
uh,
you get.
but that's the same button you jump with in The Last Guardian, and it
Mm,
felt so frustrating because I was like playing that at the
mhm.
same time as I was playing a different game. It's like who puts jump as the top button? Like that's the standard jump button is always on the bottom, and it was like so weird.
Mhm.
But I totally remember when that game came out. It was like revolutionary in my opinion of the fact that it's like this vast world with nothing in it. It's like a game that was like the game that was inspiring all the like arguments with who was it, Siskel and Ebert.
Games are art or aren't
Yeah,
art or whatever.
games. Yeah, Gene. Wait, I can't remember the Ebert's name. Roger Ebert.
Roger Ebert, yeah. That was
Yeah.
like I went to a party one time and there was like this person with a master's in art or whatever, and they like this is like a high school, cool kid party, and like half the party was people, this older person like talking about whether games were art or not. Like people cared about that back then. It's so weird.
Yeah, it was like 2010. Nevertheless, I remain convinced that in principle, video games cannot be art. And it's just like,
Oh, Ebert, you mean?
yeah,
In principle.
yeah. But it was like the Shadow of the Colossus was like the go-to example that everyone
Mm.
argued with him. It's like this game is art. Look, there's nothing to do in it except explore and appreciate it, and it's got this like twist ending to it that makes you think about what actions you've performed in the game, and it's like, I mean, I think they were right. Uh,
Hmm.
so I mean, that to me was like, if you were ever going to play one game on the system, that was probably the game to choose. Um,
Just with bad controls.
yeah. um, which I had never played Eco at
Mm.
the time. I actually ended up playing that on PS3 uh, back in like 2003 or something.
Mm.
No, not 2003, 2013. Um, and Eco I also loved like those.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I'm a fan of the developers of those games.
You should revisit Shadow of the Colossus. Now I'd be curious.
Yeah,
Maybe we should both revisit it.
yeah. They remade it on PlayStation 4,
Yep.
and it's apparently, I don't know why they chose to remake versus remaster or whatever, but they've apparently done like an exceptional job. And like,
Hmm.
if you didn't know that they had built everything from scratch, you wouldn't know that they had built everything from scratch. It just basically looks better.
It looks like it's a remaster, you mean?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, it's like you can tell the fidelity and the geometry is not like blocky and stuff. Like it feels kind of like a modern game, but it's like it plays identically.
Excuse me. I was gonna say, what do you mean modern game? It's PlayStation 2. It's the modern. What?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I keep forgetting I have a PlayStation 4 actually, so I should probably dip in.
Um, the other games, like I haven't played them recently to know how they hold up, but I really love the Kingdom Hearts games.
I really
Um,
don't.
yeah.
What is it you like? A lot of there's like I have a lot of friends who do, and I just never could get into them.
Well, what I had started to say back at the beginning, where I was saying that like when I was in high school, basically the only game that I had played that I remember playing was Final Fantasy X,
Hmm.
and I remember going to college and I didn't really have any entertainment when I went
Hmm.
to college. I was very dedicated in my studies
Hmm.
because the way that it worked was that I wanted to get into the animation program at the college I went to.
Hmm.
And my art teacher in grade 12 had me so convinced that I would never get into it that instead of applying directly for it, I applied for a 1 year art fundamentals course to kind of like up my skills. And I kind of felt like the whole rest of my career depended on how well I was able to improve myself during that 1 year.
Do life drawing or something.
Yeah. Yeah, like I would sneak into like the art fundamentals program had nighttime drawing classes, but I think it was only once a week.
Hmm.
So I would, on like weekends and on other nights of the week, I would sneak into the drawing classes for the animation and illustration programs.
Wow.
So it's like I was getting more practice and I was drawing around, like all the people that were drawing around me were like had 3 more years of experience than me.
Mm.
Um, so I feel like I did improve a lot. I was definitely getting my money's worth. But at one point in January, there was a snowstorm,
Hmm.
and there was no more classes to go to. It was the beginning of the semester, so I didn't have any work really assigned to me to do.
Hmm.
So for the first time in like months, I sat down and I played Kingdom Hearts. Like I bought the game and I played it, and it was like such a stress reliever.
And you never steadied again.
I had similar experiences. We in animation we really play a lot of Battlefield 1942,
Mm.
but this was like so meditative, and it was like
Hmm.
such a jump up in like graphics, like the not necessarily the graphics really I cared about, but like I enjoyed the gameplay a lot for it, and I enjoyed the nostalgia of getting to see, you know, uh, Squall from Final Fantasy VIII, one of my favorite characters. I can't even say the sentence without laughing. Um,
Wait, so he's actually in it? Come
yeah,
on.
yeah. But
Come on.
but the music, I absolutely loved the music.
I like the music a lot. I will say that I've listened to it, and I do appreciate that bit.
I feel like uh, I have to double check just to make sure. Yeah, you know, like Yoko Shimomura, I feel like her music is just like some of the best, and I absolutely loved Kingdom Hearts for that.
Hmm.
And I feel like Kingdom Hearts 2 uh, was a ridiculously convoluted, silly experience, but the gameplay and the music both I felt like were just a notch above the first one. That I still loved it.
Hmm. I only
Like,
played the first one.
The second one, you can dual wield your keyblades, so you're like walking around with two keyblades, and I don't know, it felt epic. Um, like you felt like you went from being weak to powerful in that game. Like it really delivered on the power fantasy side of things, I think.
Cool, cool. I kind of have a different experience, I guess. I don't know. I just thematically, it actually wasn't super interesting to me. I think actually now I'm certainly more open to things like that. Just really kind of open to anything. But at the time, it was like Disney, whatever.
Well, it was a time where like Kingdom Hearts 2 that came out while I was in
I was
animation.
gonna say you wanted to be an animator. I imagine there was a little
Yeah,
more.
like Final Fantasy X, as much as I hated the game, like that and the previous Final Fantasies were really what steered my interest in working in games and working in
Mm.
animation. Like I was never really into movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like I watched Jurassic Park over 100 times, and I watched the original Ninja Turtles movie like 100 times too. But I was never into like the Star Wars or the Indiana Jones or
Mm-hmm.
Citizen Kane's or any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I didn't.
I just chuckle because we've obviously talked about Citizen Kane at length in previous personal conversations. But anyway, please.
But I didn't get that at the time. I didn't understand why I was interested in animation.
Hmm.
So like when I went to school, my intention was to work in film,
Mm-hmm.
but I couldn't help but like there was like a teaser for Kingdom Hearts 2 where it like shows the character walking through the rain and then like running up the side of a building and stuff. And to me that animation was just like it gripped me,
Mm.
and and like just being able to look back on that particular trailer, I can understand later my shift from film into games.
Interesting.
Um
Well, I'm
and
curious. I'm curious what you even mean. Actually, like, it was strong.
well, because I entered into a route of animation, my instinct was especially to shift.
Mm,
I mean, it's games and that aspect of it. That by the time I did finally get into games, and really more recently, I have done work on game cinematics. But I am today really starting to understand that it's video game itself, like the gameplay, like the animation and the art and the music is part of that. But I don't know, it was hard to
you were looking
understand
at it
that
in
as a kid.
isolation and figured it would be fun to do anywhere.
Yeah. Um, I don't know. I really enjoyed comic books and drawing and playing guitar and stuff when I was young. So it felt like that was the side of it to get into.
Mm,
And like all the games that I was interested in playing came from like Nintendo of Japan and stuff. Like the idea of making games didn't occur to me.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
It was before the whole indie thing, so it seemed very out of reach. And I think at the time too, like American companies made computer games, right? Every like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
computer game was American Doom and whatever, all the EA games and whatnot,
yeah.
Sierra games.
But the games that had really started to fascinate me were like the Final Fantasy
Mm-hmm.
cinematics and stuff that were starting to get in there. So I don't know. There was definitely some confusion in my younger years. Some people they're confused about their sexuality. For me, it was confusion about what part of making a game do I enjoy.
Deep stuff, man. Impacted your entire career and where you eventually ended up and moved around to and everything, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But um, like I was realizing that in college too. Uh, not to like a fully conscious level, but like we had to do in animation, we had to do background design and character design and all that sort of stuff. And it's like when I was learning character design, I would like open up the Final Fantasy IX art book that I have where they'd have like character turnarounds, and I was like studying that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
And when we were doing storyboarding, I played through Metal Gear Solid 3, and I would practice storyboarding the cutscene cinematics from that game instead of like everyone else was like opening up like, Tim Burton films and stuff.
Yeah, that's funny. You were probably that like that hack that plays games to all those people, right?
A little bit.
um, I mean, we could probably do an episode on all of this as well. I'm actually quite interested in a lot of this stuff. You've kind of brought it full circle back to PlayStation 2 games, though.
Yeah, but so like Metal Gear Solid 3, that was another game that I feel like of all of the Metal Gear games that I've played,
Hmm
3 is the one that I would hands down recommend that people play.
3 is next. So I've played 3, and I remember when it was new, and I remember probably the first, I don't know, whatever, few hours, but I never finished it. So it's one I've been wanting to go back and actually play for a long time.
It was like Metal Gear Solid 1 was,
I mean, I loved 1.
for its time, a fantastic game.
Hmm
It was it was super convoluted plot wise, but that was like its charm. But like
it's easier to understand than 2. Come on.
its mechanics were like primitive.
Mhm.
Metal Gear Solid 2 came out. They improved some of the gameplay mechanics, but thematically, I hated everything about it.
I, I wouldn't quite say I hated it. I felt like I mean, I played the like Metal Gear and then Metal Gear 2 and then Metal Gear Solid and then Metal Gear Solid 2. And so as usual, I kind of have this like farther into the past based conception of what the series is. And 2 definitely was like, what am I even playing, kind of, right, after having played the previous 3. But at the same time, I almost forgave it, as like it's like every series has its little side thing they do. And
Mm.
if, as long as I didn't, I get why you could very much hate the theme, but I don't know. It was okay to me, I guess. Definitely no. Definitely, I preferred the previous 3 to it. But
The theme was like, I think, more approachable from today than it was back then. Like the idea of like the nano machines
hmm
and stuff was like still, as a grade 11 or 12 student, not very approachable to me.
hmm
Um, but I hated that I didn't get to play a snake. I hated the oil rig, like the dry warm colors,
hmm
vampires, like
Yeah, oh man, I actually, yeah. I didn't like the characters very much. There was like
I
the fat guy on roller skates
yeah.
who exploded or whatever, and the vampire was
and
weird.
and and to me,
The
like,
invincible woman, yeah.
yeah, like my world history wasn't solid at that point.
hmm
Metal Gear Solid, get it.
Uh,
But like when they call the guy, the fat guy on rollerblades, Fat Man, like the reference to the nuclear bombs was
yeah.
lost on me.
Uh-huh.
I just like, what are you doing? Like,
Uh-huh. It's too clever for its own good, right?
yeah. So I don't know. I really did not enjoy Metal Gear Solid 2, but Solid 3, they took it back. You're playing
hmm
as a
Big
version
boss,
of
right?
Snake again,
Yeah.
and it I feel like they did everything really excellently in that
Mm.
game. Like the I don't know. The James Bond style opening where someone singing about eating tree frogs was just like amazing. Um, so yeah, that's the only game now that I haven't listed now for PlayStation 2 that I would recommend is Persona 4, and I'd say that the Kingdom Hearts games, Eco, Shadow of the Colossus, Metal Gear Solid 3, and Persona 4 are like, if you're going to play PlayStation 2 era games, it should include those.
Rock on. Persona 4. So many people love Persona. I can't get past. I mean, I can play anything really, but I'm not really drawn to it, I guess. I mean, I think Persona itself, the series, is an offshoot of the whatever it's called.
Shin
I forget
Megami
the English.
Tensei.
Yeah. I was gonna say I forget the English title. Digital Devil Story, I think, or something. Anyway, whatever. But
I don't
that's
think they had an English title, did they?
it might have been a subtitle to the Japanese one. Doesn't matter. That series
Yeah,
though,
yeah.
I kind of enjoyed those a little, but I never really got into Persona. And I think you're actually a fan, maybe, of the art style. I don't know, when things get
Um,
nah,
I
no,
mean, yes, I do like the graphic style that the
mm,
artist did.
yeah, It's
Um,
popular. Like
yeah.
they sell art books and stuff. I'm just not a huge fan of that kind of style, uh, which is not to say I wouldn't give the game a chance just because I don't like it. But again, there's just nothing really drawing me to try Persona.
So you haven't tried any of them?
No, I don't think I've tried any of them.
I never tried the first three. Um, and the I still haven't played more than the first 5 minutes of the fifth one.
Hmm.
Um, but it was on my list of like top games of all time and like ones that you really need to try or whatever. So at one point, I think I saw it go on sale for like $5 or something.
Hmm.
And so I got it, and I really enjoyed it. It's like a cross between a roguelike, I guess, in the sense that like the dungeon is slightly different when you
Hmm.
go into it each time. It's kind of like, I guess, like a high school dating simulator,
Hmm.
uh, where like you can romance people and build relationships, and there's a calendar that happens, so like certain events happen on certain days, and if you pass them, you just miss your chance to do it and stuff. And then it's also like a turn-based JRPG, and
Hmm.
I'm glad I played it. Like, and considering it's a PlayStation 2 game, I only played it for the first time maybe 3 years ago, and
Oh wow, yeah.
I feel like it held up perfectly. Like this is kind of what I'm talking about. How like some of those games from that era, they hold up. They you can't really tell. Like there's so many indie games and stuff that come out now that have the fidelity of games from that era
Hmm.
that some of them you just don't notice the I don't know. Like if you look at a game like the original Metroid, I love that game, but a modern game wouldn't play the same way, even if it's like an indie game and it looks
Yep.
kind of the same. Like there would be so many improvements if that game were made today.
Versus say Persona 4 as an example, where you think it's like it's basically got everything for the most part right.
Yeah, it's like it had some brutal difficulty in Persona 4. Like you could get through an hour long dungeon and there's no save point, and
Hmm.
then an enemy can kill you in one hit.
Yeah,
And
I probably shut the game off, but
so that happened to me like two or three times out of like a
mm-hmm.
70-hour game, and it's really frustrating when that happens. And that I think is its one
Hmm.
down point. But the rest of how the game plays and I don't know, the mechanics were pretty good. The art style I thought was suitable. The music was great, and I don't know.
Cool, cool. Like I said, I'm not gonna. I don't shoot anything down before I at least play it once. I'm not. I'm pretty out of the whole JRPG thing these days. There's just not a lot of appeal there for me in general, so it probably is not high on my list of games I'd go and try next.
It was JRPGs are hard because of how long they are,
How long they are, how much grinding there is, how much. Again, this is I
and
could talk about
that's
this forever, but the whole like how much of it is actually a game versus how much of it is people
that's
talking and clicking through things.
yeah. Well, that's kind of what was interesting in Persona 4 is like because there's the calendar system
Hmm.
where you can only do so many things in a day. It's like to an extent the grinding is significantly reduced
Cool.
because unlike Final Fantasy 4, like you can't just wander around trying to get adamant armor by killing things on the moon.
Hmm.
You just can't.
Yep. You run
Um,
out of time.
yeah. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard. Like that's the reason I haven't played Persona 5 yet. Is it's I think I looked up
100
the
hour game or
estimation and
something.
it's going to be like 120 hours. And it's like
Ooh.
I really want to play it, but I also really want to play hundreds of other games.
That you could play in the 120 hours.
Yeah, there's like yeah, so 123 hours is the estimate to not do 100% of the game, but to just like play it the way I would normally play it and enjoy it and miss some stuff and get some stuff. And
Ooh,
in that
yeah.
same 123 hours, I could play through Cyberpunk 2077, God of War, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and Sniper Elite 4,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you think of how I've been playing games lately, I like playing shorter games. I like kind of like trying a game and seeing how it plays and kind of learning a bit there. And then, I don't need to just go through hours and hours of story, so I'm done. And so for me, when I hear 120 hours, I think that's like that's like 50 games, no
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, like the Mega Man 5 was 3 hours, Mega Man 4 was 4 hours, Mega Man 6 was 3 hours.
And if you get proficient at it, you can do it probably in two,
Yeah,
one and a
yeah,
half,
that
speed
was
run the whole series. Yeah.
yeah, like Mega Man 6 was 3 hours, and that was my first time playing the game in over, I don't know, 25 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 3 hours feels good to me. 10 hours. I'd do a 10-hour RPG and not feel too upset. The thing is, I guess, like, it has standardized on like 50, 70, 100, and
Yeah.
people are going to be upset if that content's not there.
Well, part of that's the cost, right? I mean, like in Canada, you buy a PlayStation 5 game, and that's $90 before tax.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if I'm not getting 40 hours out of that, I don't feel very happy about spending that type of money, I guess. Which is weird because, like, I don't know, you go to a movie theater and it's $20 to see a 2 hour experience, right?
I guess that was the point I was almost about to make, but bit my tongue on. But yeah, yeah. I don't know too. I think yeah, lots of opinions. Could talk about it another day, I guess. But like there's like crunching through a story is one type of experience, but like wanting to play the game is another type, I guess. And so
Yeah.
it's hard to measure hours when it's something like Smash Brothers. I mean, I've poured hundreds and hundreds and hundreds
Yeah.
of hours into that. And how much like actual like story content, whatever is there? Like, I don't even know. Like, actually, there's probably kind of a lot with all the trophies and this and that, but certainly not hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours, right?
But
So, I
are
mean,
you the type of person that reads any of the information on the trophies, or
I at one point I was fanatical about getting every single thing in the game just because I felt like it would somehow, I don't know,
better your life?
make me credible as this serious Smash Brothers player or something. But
Yeah.
now I just play it for fun.
Right.
Yeah. Hmm.
Well, that's that's a good amount of time right there just on the PlayStation 2. I don't think we've necessarily got time for more stuff today.
Wow, this is going to be a long series.
Well, I mean, I feel like the PlayStation 2 was a particularly interesting era just because, like you said, it was kind of like the shift where AAA became normal, and
Yeah.
the graphical quality really shifted into something that still feels very modern even today.
Yeah, I think also like PlayStation 1 felt like more of a jarring change. I mean, if you hop from Super Nintendo to PlayStation 1, it's like things are 3D now. There's like
Yeah.
movies happening. You have a disc and memory cards, and it's not Nintendo anymore. It's what Sony made it. Wow. And oh, there's, Nintendo has their thing and they're competing, and I'm not, it's like this new world. And I feel like probably in terms of like if you could somehow measure a shift, like that felt bigger, I guess. But PlayStation 2 felt more like, okay, we did the experimental, like the last gen was this shifting gen, and now things are really kind of solidifying on
Did
this
you
type of game.
did you get a chance to watch? There was an Ars Technica video on how Crash Bandicoot hacked the original PlayStation.
I feel like I've heard that. I
Well,
don't remember if I read it from them particularly.
I sent you a link. There was
If
a
you
half
sent
hour
it, that's
video that I sent like a week or more ago to you. Uh, but it was kind of fascinating to watch because it's like Crash Bandicoot was one of the first PlayStation 1 games, and they're really talking about how like they didn't have the memory or the math
mhm.
crunching abilities and stuff to do the sort of things that they wanted. And like I think they said like Crash himself used like a third of their polygon budget for what could be drawn on screen at one time. And it's like there was so much exploring of like how do you even make a polygon game happening on the PlayStation 1 that like Sony themselves didn't understand what needed to be accessible to customers.
Yeah.
That like when PlayStation 2 came out, there was definitely a refinement that had
Hmm.
happened where it was now like here's something that you can actually make games for.
Yep. Yep. I'll have to follow up. I probably didn't watch an hour video. I might
A
have
half
read
hour.
the okay. I might have read the surrounding article.
I'll
Uh,
I'll include the link onto it. Oh,
cool. Yeah. Yeah.
there's apparently a 2 hour extended interview as well.
Oh wow. Cool. Yeah. No,
Um,
that era I think is ripe with these like crazy stories of how developers like managed to cram their games into whatever space budget they had.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is weird because I understand PlayStation 3 was also very much like that because it was like this weird cell architecture that
Hmm. Was famously hard to develop for.
was famously hard, and that's why you can't play backwards compatible games on the PlayStation 4 or 5.
Hmm.
Uh, but I guess that'll be for another day.
Indeed. Indeed.
Well, I don't know how you're feeling, but I'm glad to be getting back into podcast mode.
Yeah, back into the groove of things. I felt good. I really thought we'd get through more systems, but there's no hurry, I guess.
Yeah, we'll
I
get
mean, at
through.
this rate, they're going to come out with systems faster than we can like talk about.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we should wrap it up for the day. And
Yeah, good to
good
be back.
talking to you.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. All right. Well, next time, what are we going to start with? Game
GBA,
Boy Advance. Yeah, cool. All right. Be thinking
which is
about.
which in some ways is kind of like a step back from the PlayStation 2, but also in the sense of like they really had refined that
Super
style.
Nintendo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool.
All right. Well, until next time, brother.
Yes. Be thinking. Have GBA in the mind, man.